Welcome back, everybody, to Who's Your Band. I am Jeffrey Paul. I'm joined by Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
I'm great, Jeffrey. How is the Mets?
Uh, this is what I came to a realization. What Sean is referring to is I spent the last week in Port St. Lucie doing Met baseball camp, Met baseball fantasy camp. And this was my plan going in, not to play baseball for about 40 some odd years. Don't lose any weight before you go in, and don't really practice for about 3 months before you go. Okay. Um, Go in and think that you can play the way you did when you were in high school. So this is what I came to the realization of. One, how fat I became.
Yes.
Secondly, how old I became.
Yes.
Okay. But with that said,
I got a Mookie Wilson signed baseball.
this is not a Mickey Wilson. This is when you get player of the game, this is what you get.
Listen, even a blind
Okay.
squirrel gets a fucking nut once in a while, yeah?
Well, this was basically I we were losing, and coach Kevin Baez, who was on the show, and
Mm-hmm.
Bill Pulsifer said, if you get one more hit, if you make it a multiple hit game, you'll get player of the game. And my last at bat, with my wife come down to watch me, I get a hit in my last at bat in that game.
How does it feel to get player of the game for a game that means nothing that you had to play, you had to pay to take a part of?
This is the thing. It's like it's there's a lot of mixed emotions that go through when you do this.
Huh?
Um, there's some good when you get a hit, and when you put one in the gap, it feels great. When you barely beat it out to first base, that's a terrible feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the worst feeling of playing baseball at this advanced age of mine is when I'm playing outfield one game, and the
Put you in right
person
field, didn't they? It put you in right field.
I did play a little right field.
Of course, you played right field. Go ahead.
I pitched and I played second base, but I was in right field,
Well, I would pick
and
you as a catcher,
on
but
this particular play.
okay.
Okay. And like, okay, come in, come in, come in. I come in, and of course, what do you think the guy does? Puts it over my head. Now, there is no worse feeling when your legs are aching and your chest is wheezing and the ball doesn't stop fucking rolling. I wanted to hire a Chinese guy with a fucking rickshaw to just take me to the ball. The ball just keeps going and go, and like I'm never gonna get there. I'm never. It just keeps going because the grass is real short and it's real fast. The only saving grace was the guy who hit it was older and fatter than me.
Is that
Okay.
possible?
Yes. Yes. We had a guy on our team. He was 73, going to be 74 before the end of this year. And he caught 2 games in a row. He was in great shape. This is my inspiration.
I thought you said he was older than you. I don't get this whole fantasy camp bullshit. It's like you either do it or like you do it when you were younger, like for real, or you just say,
No, no, no. It's more than that. I didn't understand it either until I got there. So this is what I think I'm going to wind up doing. I will get myself in shape. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to get myself in shape. I'm going to play ball. I'm going to join a league. And
around
I'm
his shape, Jeff. I mean,
no, I'm not going to be right. Listen, I don't have anything to come out with you today because fucking unfortunately, you look good. You did a half marathon or whatever the hell you did. Okay. I mean, you look. I got Thank goodness you look healthy. You
yeah,
know, you looked at some of those pictures that you posted online. Look, you should be dead by now.
yeah, I should have been. And then
Yeah.
that's why I was very lucky. And I realized that I had to do something about it. And one of the things I realized I'm never going to do is go to fucking Yankees fantasy camp. Because you know
Because
why?
Yankee Fantasy Camp is as good as Met Fantasy Camp.
Oh, listen, anything Yankees is better than the Mets, no matter what. But
Not sure, but go
I don't
on.
know. I don't even like these kind of like rock and roll fantasy camps when like you go and like the fucking third keyboard player from Loverboy is there, and I don't like that shit. I think it's stupid.
Who, Alan Steinwick?
I pulled it out of my ass, and you
That's the third.
know who the third keyboard player for
No,
Loverboy.
I see. You're so stupid. I just made up that name. That's
I
the guy.
couldn't tell
That
you.
yeah, that's the
Listen,
guy from
I know this kind of
Fletch.
shit. This is why I don't even know. You would know. All right, who was the second keyboard player for Styx?
Well, there was only one. The guy it's Dennis DeYoung, and the guy who's in the band now is oh god, Lawrence Garland.
Nerd. This is why I make fun of you. Nobody should know who the keyboard player for Styx is. Not even the rest of the fucking members of Styx should know what the keyboard player's name is.
Well, he's actually pretty good. You know, he's a good singer. He's played in a couple different bands. But speaking of bands,
Yes,
okay, and I'm glad that we're back doing this, and I'm
me
glad
too. I actually
I'm happy it's me and you today.
I missed you a little bit.
You should. Okay. We we decided to do this. We always do these top 10 lists, and we thought we'd do make it a little bit more challenging this time.
Yeah.
We were going to do a top 5 list. Your top 5 Ozzy songs, not Sabbath,
Yep.
but Ozzy. Top 5 Ozzy songs.
Without
Okay.
question, the hardest list for me to do.
See, I thought for you, I thought it might have been Metallica, which we did. I remember that being a challenge.
This was hard because I mean, as much as I love Sabbath, I prefer Ozzy solo stuff over the Sabbath stuff. So this was a really, really hard one. And, you know, I think I'm still making a change. I can't do this. I have to make a change. Go ahead, just keep talking. I gotta change this.
Okay, so a top 5 list is just like, I mean, I'm gonna start right off and tell you that I did not even put Crazy Train on here.
Neither did I.
Because it didn't make my top 5, which could be Ozzy's most identifiable song. Okay, so when you have to start by cutting Crazy Train, think about all the other deep tracks or the tracks that you really like that you couldn't put on this list. So to come up with a 5 was this was a tough one. It wasn't the toughest thing for me to do. I thought the Queen list was hard. I thought the Springsteen list was hard, but again, we had a little bit of leeway because we were doing top 10, but we're doing top 5, and that makes it doubly hard. So I'll go first and let Sean kind of like relook at his list, and I'm gonna go with this is probably the most recent entry on my top 5 list is off of this album, off of the Osmosis album. I'm gonna go Perry Mason. I love the personnel.
My fucking list, Jeff.
Well, here's the thing. I love the personnel on this album. You have Zach Wilde, you have Geezer Butler, you have Dean Castronovo, who played drums, who's the drummer in Journey now, and an amazing singer. And I like the backstory about the song too, because she's like, why is Ozzy Osbourne writing a song called Perry Mason? Do you think that maybe it's just kind of like, it's just like a coincidence they came up with this name? No, he wrote it because he felt like Perry Mason. He felt that he was always in court at this part of his life. He was in court over the suicide solution case. So, you know, a kid listens to the song Suicide Solution, takes it that he has to take his life, and the family sues Ozzy personally. He had an ongoing case, which really, like, I think this hurt him personally throughout his life. The case with bandmates Bob Daisley and Lee Kirksley. And he said in an interview that all he wanted to do is get on with being a rock star. Instead, he ends up being Perry fucking Mason. And that's the kind of story with this song.
Such a great song. I always like I'm a huge Zach Wilde fan. And most of this, like I had a hard time with my list because for a while I didn't have one Randy Rhoads song on this list.
Oh, okay, come on.
That's sacrilege.
Stop it.
Well, no, because again, my personal favorites are also, you know, they're different than what, you know, might be your personal favorites. But so I went number 5 with a fairly newer song. I Don't Want to Stop. I think the riff that Zach plays in this just is one of those riding the wave kind of riffs, if you know what I mean. It's just
Hmm.
it punches you right in the fucking teeth. I've always loved this song, and I think it's one of the better ones off of that. It's not a great record. Let's just get that out of the way. Um, there's what I'm trying to see what else is on this record. Because I don't do research like you do. Um, yeah, not the best record, the Black Rain one came out in 2007. I think that this is my newest on the list as far as most recent songs. But I gotta tell you, I think you are not going to like my list.
Well, let's reserve judgment on that. I don't think I'm breaking too much ground on this, and then I'd like to compare our list to our listeners' lists.
Okay.
So one thing about Ozzy is the amount of amazing guitars he's had in the band. The aforementioned Randy Rhoads, and then he had Brad Gillis in the band, who went on to fame with Night Ranger, and he had like Zach Wild, who you said, and yeah, well, that leads me to my fourth pick, which is "Shot in the Dark," off
Jeff.
of Ultimate Sin in '86.
That's
The
my
thing
number
is,
four too.
I can't put a song. I can't leave a song without Jakey Lee on it. Jakey Lee, I think, is one of the more underrated guitarists. I think when you look at your lexicon of rock and roll metal guitarists, and everyone starts with Eddie Van Halen. I think now the predecessor to that is Nuno Betancourt. I think Jakey Lee has always been in the conversation. I think he's a great.
I think he's an underrated guitar, 100% underrated guitar player.
You never see him on the top 10 list, but
Yeah.
he absolutely should be. The song, though, was written by bassist Phil Susan, and Phil Susan, for years, played with Dio. And just a few months ago, maybe 2 months ago, over at Starland Ballroom, I went over to see Last in Line, and I got a chance.
I'm 3 minutes away. You don't come by. You don't bring an Entenmann's. You don't want to have coffee.
You had a gig that night.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, I would have taken you to the shows. Okay. Well, why I wouldn't do that? You're 2 minutes away. I would have brought an Entenmann's. I would have brought some cake. No, I got a chance to meet him after the show too, and he couldn't have been a nicer guy. And he was telling us how he wrote this song. This was his first top 100 debuting song on the Billboard charts, and I think it came in at number 68, if I'm not mistaken.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah, at this point already, 86, Ozzy has already built up a track record. Remember, he gets fired from Sabbath in about 78. All right. It's the last tour, and the last tour is a disaster. They have Van Halen blowing away every single night. Ozzy's not showing up for gigs, and what's his name? Iommi's had enough of him, and he gets thrown out of the band. He winds up taking a year to kind of get his act together. He puts together another band. His wife Sharon really starts to manage his career a little bit more closely. He puts together this killer band of just not players but songwriters as well. And the first album right out the gate is amazing. But there's a little bit of a rivalry going on because Sabbath put out Heaven and Hell, which was also a very acclaimed album. Okay, so they're kind of going head to head. When in '86 he had already had about 2 or 3 real big albums, and when Shot in the Dark comes out, and it's a real good
record. I think every record he had was a monster hit, dude.
Not true.
You don't think so? I mean,
no. I think when you get into when you start to get into the late '90s and 2000s, as in terms of record sales, things have gone down. But he reaches his point where his top, where he had Blizzard of Oz, he had Diary of a Madman. Then there was the double live album that came out, which was a great album, a mixture of Ozzy songs and Sabbath stuff. And then he put out the song with Lita Ford. He had a whole bunch of stuff going on in the '80s. So he's really big in '86. This is like where he's gone up, but he's reaching that point where it's the biggest of a solo career.
Big hair Ozzy as well.
Yeah, frosted tips Ozzy. Yeah,
Ozzy, yes.
Yeah, I don't really like that look on him.
Do you have a picture of you with frosted tips somewhere floating around?
I do.
You had that.
Me?
did.
Absolutely, I do.
I know. I listen. I'm not.
That's
I'm not.
90s Jeff.
I am not joking. That's no. That's early '80s, Jeff. I am not joking. As much as I bust your balls, I love you just as much. But my life will not be complete until I have a copy of you with ridiculously long Mike Tramp hair.
Okay, when I had long hair, it was not frosted. Frosted was not a thing yet. Okay,
Okay.
but in my high school yearbook picture, it's more Bon Jovi, 80s of In and Out of Love. If you know,
What
if
high
you,
school did you go to again?
I went to Tomville High School.
Time. Okay, so that way I can figure out. I can go
Yeah.
online and
Oh,
get.
listen, I'm not ashamed. I'll get a picture.
Oh no, no, no!
Okay.
I need to do my research.
Uh,
I need to investigate this. I am going to get the copy myself of Jeffrey's high school graduation picture. Mark my words, people. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to put up the picture, and Adam is going to make that the screenshot of the episode when it goes on YouTube. Continue.
Okay, so
Shot in the dark.
yes, I
Number
so,
four.
shot in the dark, and it's his first debuting song that enters the top 100 on Billboard charts. So that's my number four.
And that was mine too. And the reason I put it because I was 10 when that came out, but I had known who Ozzy was. I had been introduced to Ozzy at that point, but this was the first time I actually saw him on video. I never saw a video of his beforehand because I don't really think he did a ton of them, right? I mean,
No, he did. I mean, he had some real good ones.
yeah. I mean, I
But the early ones, like for like Crazy Train, was a terrible video.
yeah. I mean, I remember Bark at the Moon, but like
Bark the Moon's the best video.
I remember going backwards and seeing it. So Shot in the Dark to me was my first visual experience with Ozzy. So that always leaves a special mark. But I think it's Jake E. Lee's best song that he wrote for Ozzy as well, too, or played on with Ozzy.
Yeah.
All right, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna jump into number three, my number three, only because I kind of sort of mentioned it. I was introduced to Ozzy from my uncle, who was one of my biggest music influences, and he's the one who says to me, take some of my records, and because he was probably about 10 years older than you, maybe, or 15 years older than you. So like it was like that great gap, you know what I mean? He so he hands me this record and he goes, just do me a favor, try and not listen to song number 5. I was like 7 years old when I got this record. And I'm like, all right, fuck, what's the first thing you do? Write to song number 5, right? So the first song that I've ever heard from Ozzy Osbourne is my number 3 is Suicide Solution.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because
I'm surprised you picked that one.
Yeah, it was a little bit, I went back and forth on it and I went more sentimental with it because I think if you really look at it, Crazy Train's his most popular song. It's his everybody loves it, not me, not you. That's fine. But I think Suicide Solution is his most notorious song because of the lawsuit, because of the death and stuff like that. So I think people, if you know Ozzy, like you don't know Ozzy, but okay, it's a Crazy Train, right? But that song might come up too. Suicide Solution might be the song that comes up right after Crazy Train in conversation with people who don't know Ozzy very well.
Yeah, it has a great opening line. Wine is fine, but beer is quicker. Suicide
Quicker.
Right. So yeah, I like the song. If this was a top 10 list, it may have come in for me at number 10. I don't know. I still don't see it in my time, but it may have been.
I flip flop between this and I don't know, just so you know.
Okay, well, don't spoil anything here. So because I'm going to number 3, and number 3 is off of Diary of a Madman, Over the Mountain, which is a great song. This was written by Bob Daisley, okay, who wrote a lot of the songs that Ozzy had on his first 2 albums, which I think are his 2 best albums, by the way. Bob Daisley days with Ozzy become numbered because he really wanted to get more of the writing credit. He wanted to get some of the publishing. He gets into it with Sharon. He gets fired from the band. He gets, they wind up replacing a lot of his tracks. They reissued the albums with different players. Bob Daisley not playing on it. What I found interesting about this song was, remember Frankie Banelli from Quiet Riot?
Yeah,
Okay. Frankie had always claimed that he came up with the drum pattern for this song.
really.
But Over the Mountain is a great riff. I think it's a great vocal. And I think, I think that, like I said, the two best Ozzy albums for me are the first two. So I had to have something. Again, this is a top five list, not a
Right.
top 10. So I had to have something that represented Diary of a Madman. And I figured, why not put it right in the middle?
I don't think that's a bad list. I gotta tell you, I really don't. Um, I disagree with you that his first two records are his best records because I think his best record you will find out later on, from me at least. Um, why don't you go into your number two?
All right, my number two, of course, you had to ruin it. It's I Don't Know, off of Blizzard of Oz in 1980, and here's the reason why. It's the first song I ever heard from Ozzy. The first song as a solo, as the first time I ever heard Randy Rhoads. I think it's an amazing, amazing riff. Um, it's also great writing from Ozzy. And again, when I told the story at the beginning, he writes the song after he's kicked out of Sabbath. This is like one of the first songs he wrote. He's depressed, and I think the line that really kind of like shows that, he writes, "What's the future of mankind? How do I know? I got left behind." Okay, Ozzy felt he had no future at this point. He's a rehabbing alcoholic. He's out of a band that he helped start. It was an iconic band, and he doesn't know what the future holds. Has the world passed him by? And as soon as you heard Randy Rhoads playing this, you knew that, like, this was special, man. I like everyone points to Eddie as the guitar player that kind of like changed music for them. For me, it was Randy Rhoads. I just think the guy was just off the charts. I mean, he didn't just play fast; he played with a lot of melody to his stuff. Like what he wrote was beautiful. It's real music. I get the feeling if he would have lived, he would have outgrown Ozzy, and he probably would have gone into he may have,
Oh,
yeah, he
he
would
would
have
not have
evolved to a
been.
different style of music, I
He would
think.
not have been with Ozzy much longer, because again, I always believe everything happens for a reason, and because Randy dies, I listen. I'm not embarrassed to say this. I think Zach Wild is not a better guitar player than Randy, but I
He's
think
not better.
no, I just fucking said that. But I think what with Zach though is he really encompasses now the Ozzy sound. I think when you hear Ozzy, you associate Zach Wild as being the guitar player now and not Randy Rhoads, if that makes sense to you. I think he has more longevity with Ozzy at this point, a lot more longevity with Ozzy at this point.
I just think I think Rhodes songs are more iconic and live on, have been played more. I think I think you can almost combined everything past 92, and it doesn't add up to the downloads that you would get from a song
I'll
like
give you
Crazy
that.
Train.
No, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. But listen, the reason I mentioned him is my number two is a Zach Wild song. It's the first song that Zach Wild is heard on. I put Miracle Man at number two.
Oh, that's a great song. Everyone loves that one. That's a big Ozzy song. Yeah,
Monster song. But again, it really did introduce the world to
yeah.
Zach Wild. So, and when I say that I think that he encompasses the Ozzy sound, I think that has to be the most important song from the Zach Wild era. Is the first one.
You know what? Ozzy knew what he was doing. The organization knew what they were doing, like putting together these great bands, but having it starting with a great guitarist, and not just like a guy who can play, but a guy who had like the look too. I mean, Zach looked like he was put on this planet to be a rock star. You know,
Oh, absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
he,
I love
he-
the fact that when he started with Ozzy, he was about 140 pounds with long hair and no beard. Now all of a sudden he's this jacked up, roided, bearded monster is about 280.
yeah. But did you see he also was a guitar player in the movie Rockstar?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Another former guest of ours, Blas Elias from Slaughter,
played
was
the drummer, and Jeff Filson from Dokken and now Foreigner was the bass player in that band.
yes, and Mark Wahlberg was the lead.
Who's a great movie. I still like that movie.
It's a horrible movie, but it's got the nostalgia.
All right, so for me, number one, no surprise, it's I have two songs that are my two favorite heavy metal songs of all time. One, of course, has to be a Maiden song, "Hallowed Be Thy Name." I could play it 5,000 times in a row and never get bored of it. And the other one is "Mr. Crowley" off of Blizzard of Oz. Is easily my favorite Ozzy songs. When I made this list, this was the first thing I wrote down. Easily my favorite one. As everyone knows, is about the occultist Aleister Crowley. Um, but the way the song starts, it starts with this moody keyboard solo by Don Airey. Um, the way he wrote this song, well, that part was they were looking for a way to really like get the song started, and Don Airey had these thoughts in his head. And he just says, "Get out of the." He kicked everyone out of the studio. Give me an hour. An hour later, it comes back with that what you hear on record now, which as soon as you hear it, you know what it is. It gets you pumped. You know it's great. The other thing I love about it, the way it starts, the first vocal, Ozzy's Mr. Crowley, and then bam, it gets into the song. Two beautiful solos in this. Probably two of the most, well, at least one of the most identifiable, like the like Smoke on the Water. That is the way I think the guitar lead in this is. Like people know it. Like you know what song this is. You could pull it out.
No, fucking 45-year-old to 62-year-old men fucking know this song instantly. Some Joe Schmo who fucking lives in the middle of Uruguay doesn't know this goddamn song.
He'll know this song. He'll know this.
No way.
Okay. And and the way he wrote the song, or why he wrote the song, is they're in the studio and there was a deck of tarot cards just sitting around, and he just starts putting pen to paper and starts writing about Aleister Crowley, and this is what you came up with. I think the best Ozzy song. This may pass a Sabbath song for me. I don't know yet.
I think you're gonna hate my number one. I really think you're gonna hate my number one.
Well, give me a second, because I want to try and
I'll give you two
guess
guesses.
what it's going to be. I know don't get me mad, because I hope you don't pick something stupid like "Goodbye to Romance."
No, that's your one
All
guess.
right, good.
Okay.
That's my one guess. All right, good. So I won't get that mad.
I put it on for a couple different reasons. I think it's a perfectly written song, number one. And I don't say that very often. I think the lyrics, I think the guitar lines, there's a couple different riffs in this song too, which I think is cool. Ozzy did not write this. One of my favorite people on the planet wrote this. I went with "Mama, I'm Coming Home" at number one. And here's why I did it. I think it still has radio play. It still has radio power. Lemmy from Motorhead wrote this song, with a couple other songs from No More Tears as well. I see you're holding your tongue.
No, because here's the funny thing. So after you're done with your list, I was gonna start giving out what some of the people wrote. Very first comment we have is "Mom, I'm Coming Home."
I think it's just a great song. No More Tears for me, like you said, the first two albums are your favorites of Ozzy's. Nothing touches No More Tears for me. That's by far my favorite record by Ozzy. Like Zach even covers No More Tears when he started Black Label Society. That was one of the first songs they put out, was his cover of No More Tears, because he wrote the whole thing, and it's like dropped down 4 steps. It's amazing. But yeah, that's my special album. Again, the video was huge. It was right when, like, I think 80s metal was really at the apex, and I lumped that into 80s metal too for some reason, because I guess the big hair and whatever. But the MTV play on this was nuts. It was the biggest video he ever had, hands down. I mean, it was number one for like 7 weeks on MTV. And Zach's playing on this record is just perfect. But the intro, the 12 string, and then his solo is not a very complicated solo, but it's one of those ones where it completes the entire song. I can't hear that song without hearing the solo, if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, it finishes the song.
Yeah. So that's my number one.
Well, here's the thing about your list. It's not predictable, and I like that we both didn't put Crazy Train on it.
Well,
I think
we don't agree on much, but we both agreed that was never going on our lists.
right. That was like when we did Queen, we're not putting Bohemian Rhapsody on it.
Yeah.
I tend to go with a little bit more of the commercial songs. You go with I think some of the deeper cuts. But you can't go wrong with an Ozzy list. So let me pull up some of what people put here.
Yeah, let's hear some if
Okay.
they're right or wrong.
All right. So Joe Anthony,
Wrong.
comedian Joe. Well, he put "Mama, I'm Coming Home," "Bark at the Moon." Okay, he did say "Crazy Train." Let's see. Brad Trackman. You know Brad Trackman? Sure.
Oh, the name, I don't know him. Oh no, I did work with Brad once.
Yeah, Brad has to come on the show. He's a big music guy. He's a drummer too. SATO, that was the one that I was having a real hard time trying to get on this list. Great song. Crazy Train, Bark at the Moon, Mr. Crowley's Suicide Solution. Do you know Tim Grill?
Of course, I know Tim Grill. He's a
Tim
good
Grill,
player.
comedian, musician as well. Diary of a Madman, that's a good song. Revelation, Mother Earth, not bad. Tonight, Crazy Train, and No More Tears. Former guest, one of Sean's good friends, Daniel McRitchie.
Ah, fuck him.
Uh, SATO, Flying High Again. That's not a bad one. Crazy Train, Bark at the Moon. I don't know. People, when you ask for Ozzy songs, love giving you Sabbath stuff.
Well, they don't know what we're talking about. So, I mean, a lot of people associate Sabbath with Ozzy, like as the same people. They don't realize he was a part of it.
Okay, so now two good loyal listeners. Roy Mackey picks Mr. Crowley, Perry Mason, See You on the Other Side. That's the first time we've heard that come up.
Great song.
Goodbye to Romance, which I don't understand how that could. And Crazy Train.
Okay.
Dave Neidl, who loves the lists. He comments on it and writes every time we make a list. Crazy Train is his number one. Yeah, I mean, it's okay to include it. I don't know if I'm putting it in number one, but maybe he's putting it in number one because it kind of feels it's the most successful. Bark at the Moon, Mr. Crowley, No More Tears, Suicide Solution.
He might have the most all-around best list, though, if you think about that.
It's a good list. Now, this is, I think, one of the most. I think this is probably a real interesting. Brian Roth, Hellraiser.
Okay, another song Lemmy wrote.
Okay, Mama, I'm Coming Home.
Lemmy.
Perry Mason.
Zach.
Scream.
Ew.
And No More Tears.
I don't think Scream belongs on any of these lists, but the rest of it's not that bad, but not a top five.
But no, but what I like about it is there are two songs here that we haven't. No one even mentioned Hellraiser and Scream, so I think that's kind of interesting. Jim Wright puts down Mr. Crowley, Flying High Again, Suicide Solution, Bark at the Moon. I don't know. So you get a lot of votes here for Mr. Crowley, and Flying High Again does seem to be kind of like one that people seem to like. Okay, Steve Rose. Interesting. Bark at the Moon, Revelation, Mother Earth. I do not like that song. Crazy Train, he writes, of course. I don't know. Shot in the Dark, and he could not narrow it down to five. He had to put an honorable mention in Mr. Crowley, and then he goes, how can you also leave out Over the Mountain? And I agree.
Must be from the same graduating class in Tottenville High School.
I think that guy was a Tottenville High School graduate.
I know my shit, Jeffrey.
Yes, you did. Can't get one past you, Sean Morton.
Yeah.
But that's our list, and I think it's a good one. I think we have some pretty good stuff on here.
Yeah, this was, I tell you, like I said this to you before, I really had a hard time with this list. I changed it. First of all, we understand the one thing, okay? You are fantastic on this podcast when it comes to doing research and knowing the backstories and the information and the questions and things like that. We all know that I bring the levity, but bring no fucking preparation to this show at all. I was like 3 goddamn days changing this list. I've never done this before. On all the list shows that we've done, I changed this at a minimum 25 times. I changed it up until 3 seconds before I started talking. I changed it again.
The only time I really did that, I think, was the Springsteen list. The Springsteen list is like, if you're driving, say like you have a gig on Saturday night, and you got a 2-3 hour ride coming home, and you're listening to some music, and all of a sudden, a Springsteen song pops on, like say "Spirit in the Night," that you like, oh fuck, I didn't even remember it, and you're like, you know what, that is an amazing song. And I got to add this on the list. What can I take out? I think that happened to me when we did the list, and it wasn't "Spirit in the Night." It was "I Came for You," for you. For you, I came for you. Remember that song?
I just wanted to get you to sing on the radio on the podcast.
Yeah.
No, I don't remember that song at all.
Yeah. It's a great song.
I'll take your word for it.
You don't know that song off the first album?
Not off the top of my head right now. No,
Hmm.
no, I do
Well,
not.
anyway, that made my. I remember that made my list because I was driving home, and that came on. I was like, my God, man, I would just have to like now find it on my phone and just now start playing it and start going through a rabbit hole of the song.
I'm gonna go do a deep dive of watching Ozzy's entire set from the 1989 Moscow Music Peace Festival, because that's what I watched about 3 of those videos today, because when I was trying to get up like different lyrics and stuff like that, and he was so goddamn good in '89. That's why I love the fact that that was my like real peak of Ozzy. And it all goes back to the goddamn thing that Billy Vera said. The music that you listen to at 13 is the music that you will listen to for the rest of your life. And
I
look,
think that's the best quote on the show.
no question. I must have
I
repeated
agree.
the quote 1,000 times to people. And you know what? And they all stop, and you see them pulling their fingers out and they're counting, and they go, okay, well, I was 13. Oh my God, these are all the CDs that are in my car. So again, when Ozzy Moscow Music Peace Festival, I was 13. And to me, that was that was at that point, that was like a real monstrous thing for me to see all like my favorite bands like Bon Jovi and Skid Row and Ozzy all on one big show.
So
And that was
I,
really pushed on MTV too.
I got a funny out. It's not, I don't know how funny it is, but it's an Ozzy story. Two of them. First time I go see him, like you're not Sabbath, it's Ozzy, and me and my friends, they were playing out at the Nassau Coliseum, and we bought tickets, but none of us could drive because we weren't old enough. But we were like, we're gonna figure out a way to get there. Someone will drive us. Of course, day the concert comes, no one can drive us. All right. So we kind of like our group of friends kind of break up, and me and my friend Stan wind up trying to we take a train, the ferry, train again. We wind up getting a cab. This was the bill. It was the opening act was Def Leppard, middle band was Joe Perry Project, and then Ozzy closing it. So we missed all of Def Leppard. We get there at the end of Joe Perry and then got to see Ozzy, which was amazing. Another story, and this involves one of your favorite bands, two of your favorite bands.
Hmm.
I'm working, doing the show. Like when at the time when we were doing concerts, when you weren't touring, you would do local stuff. And so I would always get called to do stuff either in Jersey or the city. Jersey was easy, great gig. So they asked me to do Ozzy. And my job was really, I was working stage left. I was just like in charge of what was going on over on that part of the stage. On the bill was opening Motorhead, Middle band was Ugly Kid Joe, and then Ozzy closes it out. All right.
Okay.
He does the show, and afterwards he comes out off stage left and literally collapses in my arms.
No,
Okay, take him with his head security guy. Now, follow my finger. If we're here, we have to go all the way around to over here. So you're going all the way around, like figure like you're going past the ice, behind the net,
okay.
where his dressing room would be, and we're literally carrying him. Okay, we get him into his dressing room and put him on the couch, and his security guy goes, "You have to get out and let nobody comes in. Nobody." Now they gotta get him up because he has a meet and greet.
Oh wow.
And yeah, so about 45 minutes later, somehow he pulls it together and he does a meet and greet. Now the show must have ended a little bit before 11, and by about 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm still there. And the security guy goes, "Hey, would do you want to go and meet him?" And I was like, at this point, I was like, "I'm good. I just want to get out of here. We're good to go." And that was it.
That's a pretty cool story. I can't make fun of that. I'd like to, but I can't make fun of that.
Yeah, it was. And again, that was back in the day. That was in the 90s. And
My
I'm gonna say that I'm gonna almost give you the guarantee. The exact date was, I can't remember the year, but I'm pretty sure it was March. Not I'm talking about the March. It was October. It was October either 5th or 8th. And the reason why I remember that, and the reason why I wanted to leave so bad, was because that's when allergy season would kick in, and my allergies were killing me.
You're a fucking nerd. So that was 95 or 96.
It could have been.
Yeah, it was
Ugly Kid Joe was, they had already, I knew,
they were huge at that point.
what was their big hit? What's that song? Everything About You and
Yeah.
Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah.
They had already had both songs out.
All right, so it's 96.
So it
96.
had to be then.
Yep. I was at that show. Little did we know, Jeffrey, that
In
25
fact,
years
if you
later,
would, and if you would have known me back then, we could have gotten you backstage passes.
I knew you back then. Trust me, I still would have thought you were a fucking nerd.
Well, listen, you were what, like 700 pounds?
No. uh, you finally made it funny. No, I was a big boy then. Yeah, I was a big boy.
But
All right.
anyway, this was a fun episode.
It was. I enjoyed it.
And next week, I don't think I told you yet. We're gonna do a special episode.
Okay.
We have Steve Trevelise from 101.5 coming on.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, we're going to talk about the Beatles' new song that's out.
Okay. And he's a big Beatles fanatic, right?
Well, yep, he actually requested.
I'll tell you what, we're going to talk off air. I may have an idea for that show too.
Okay.
And I
Well,
want to say it on here in case someone listened to it.
okay. So on that case, guys, thank you for listening. Subscribe. Adam, just keep doing Adam's stuff. We appreciate you, getting the podcasts out there. And we'll catch you next week. Okay. We had to take a little hiatus. It was the end of sun, whatever was going on. We were traveling, we had stuff going on. But we're back now. And we'll have a bunch of new shows coming out.
Yep.
In coming up in the new year. So this is good. And we'll catch you next time, folks. Thank you very much for listening.
Later, guys.